Welcome to the Fearless Revolution. Courage is important, but taking fearful action is not a sustainable long-term strategy. If you want to take back control of your life and stop believing the lies that are holding you back, then you're in the right place. Join Sandy Gledhill, your fearless leader coach, as she reveals the secrets to living and leading fearlessly. Now, let's join the Fearless Revolution.
Hey, and welcome back to the Fearless Revolution. I'm so glad you guys joined me today because today we're going to tackle a really big problem that pretty much everybody I've ever encountered has run into this particular problem at some point in their personal life or their professional life. I'm talking about that feeling of getting stuck. Right? We've all felt it. Like all of a sudden you're just in this quicksand and you feel like you don't know which direction to go. What's the next right move? And so what happens is because people don't know what the right decision is to make, they make no decision at all. And then they feel stuck. And then people pretty much try to do everything except make a decision, which is the thing that's going to move you forward and get you unstuck. So today we're going to talk about the valley of decision and how to get unstuck once and for all. So one of the common problems that leaders face is that feeling of being stuck that we were just talking about, not knowing with certainty which way to go next. But guess what? That is no excuse for sitting still and accepting like inactivity as a viable option. It's not. I like to think about the fact that the earth is continually spinning. Everything is always in motion. So when we think that we're just sitting still, we're really not. You know, everything's in motion. Motion is part of what we were created to do, be in motion, right? Everything faces forward. Your eyes are in the front of your head. Your feet face forward. Everything is about acceleration and about forward motion. And yet getting stuck is just this massive problem that we find ourselves facing. So I really want to give you guys some tools and just some interesting things to think about so that the next time you feel stuck, you realize not making a decision is really not a viable option. It is not a strategy that's going to fix anything. Now, you'll see as I go on to talk about this, I'm also not advocating snap decisions. Okay, there is a great methodology for it's a decision-making process that I created, and I like to have processes, policies. I even talk about back pocket phrases, an idea of what I'm going to say in a given situation. I like to think strategically before I find myself in a situation about what I'm going to do in that situation. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you guys some great tips and tricks to move forward. All right, so a core tenet of fearless living is really just understanding your legal right to make decisions and to lead even while you're still in process. You have heard me say, hi, my name's Sandy. I am imperfect and I am in process. And I'm also boldly living out my purpose. I'm big on leading even as you're becoming. And that is an important element to remember as we have this particular conversation about decisions and getting unstuck. You don't have to arrive at a destination or some level of expertise or, God forbid, some level of perfection that doesn't exist in order to step out and lead and allow other people to follow you. Because a leader sometimes is just one step ahead. Really, if you are one step ahead in a particular arena, that might qualify you as a leader, depending on what that arena is. So, fear, of course, wants you to be stuck. Fear loves it when you're stuck. Fear loves paralysis and chaos and keeping us stuck and uncertain and insecure. But I want you guys to understand that even when you aren't exactly certain what the next move should be, there is a way to make a decision with confidence. So that's what we're going to talk about. So fear tells you you don't have enough data. We love to feel like we have all the information before we step out and make a decision. But the reality is we almost never have complete information before we make decisions. Fear tells you you can't make a wise choice until you have run through every possible scenario and outcome and consequence in your mind. And I'm telling you, that is a lie. Fear also wants to whisper in your ear that the wrong decision is going to have catastrophic consequences. And again, very seldom is that the case. Unless you are, leading mass amounts of people or leading a nation or a huge corporation, very seldom do our decisions, even when they're wrong, have truly catastrophic consequences. And even that, mistakes have been made in the world with big consequences, and those things can generally be righted. They can be fixed. But I'm here to tell you, action is almost always better than inaction. Doing something, with rare exception, doing something is always better than doing nothing. So you really got to quit listening to the lies of fear and know that the truth is that we really, truly rarely have complete information before making decisions. If you think about the smaller decisions in your life, we make decisions all day long about everyday things with incomplete information. But then the minute we get into like the professional realm, or we get into a situation where our decisions might affect somebody else, or where we get into a situation where our decisions might put us out there and we are concerned about the judgment and the opinions of other people. And that really is what I have found causes people to get stuck. So I like to start this conversation talking about what Colin Powell, so retired 4-star General Colin Powell, has this philosophy around decision making, and he calls it the 40-70 rule. And what he says is that if you make a decision with less than 40% of the information that you believe you need, you are probably shooting from the hip. Like you are making some knee-jerk choices, you're rolling the dice. It's not enough information if you don't have at least 40%. But if you wait until you've got more than 70% of the information that you believe you need, then chances are you've waited too long. The opportunity is going to pass you by. There's that saying, you got to strike while the iron's hot. That means there's a window of opportunity wherein decisions have the best impact and the best outcome. And Colin Powell believes that is between 40 and 70% of information. I don't know how scientific that is, but I think it's interesting. And it's something I try to live by. I do think about that when I have decisions to make. I believe that growth and success are achieved by those who jump, not haphazardly, but confidently, and usually before they feel ready. So that's the tricky part. Leaders don't want to jump before they feel ready. But the truth is, if you wait until you feel ready, you've probably waited too long. So you are probably aware that Newton's first law of motion states, in part, that an object at rest stays at rest and an object in motion stays in motion. I believe the same is true about decision making. So I think that decision making is like a muscle that when you don't exercise it, it can atrophy. And then making a decision becomes even harder and scarier and feels more difficult. But if you exercise that decision muscle by getting in the flow of constantly making decisions, as long as you are within those parameters, those comfortable parameters of enough information but not waiting too long to have all the information. So a decisive person gets in the habit of making decisions. I have said for a long time, I believe after the years I've spent coaching people who have accomplished great things, one of the things that I've seen, like a common thread that runs through these leaders, is that they are decisive. Again, not being, not making knee-jerk responses or decisions and not being unwise, but they are decisive. They're not afraid to make a decision when the decision making responsibility falls to them. And of course, we want to be sure that we're making decisions in the arena that is your responsibility to make that decision. So we don't want to be making decisions for other people or about things over which we really don't have accountability or control or responsibility. But a decisive person does get in the habit of making decisions, which then perpetuates the ability to make decisions in the future, to continue that flow of decision making. And on the other side of that coin is the person who constantly puts off making decisions for fear of making a mistake, usually. So generally somebody who puts off making a decision, they'll say they don't have all the information or they're not sure which direction they should go, but at the end of the day, they're afraid of making a mistake. And the problem with that mindset of I have to be sure I'm not going to make a mistake before I make a decision, the problem with that mindset is we often make mistakes. I think I've talked about the decision-making cycle with you already, but let me just reiterate that I believe life is kind of a giant trial and error experiment. We are consistently making choices, taking action, then waiting to see what consequence or outcome that action brings, then taking that new information and analyzing it and using that analysis to make a better decision next time moving forward. It's just this decision cycle. But people get stuck because they don't remember that some of the most valuable data, some of the most valuable information that you have probably ever gotten in your life has not come from making the right choice. It's probably come from making the wrong choice at some point. We learn from our mistakes. That's a great thing about decision making and getting information and going, well, that didn't work out well. Let's adjust this, or let's scrap the whole project and start with something else. Or, hey, that was close. Let's do it again and see what happens next time. It's that data, that information that comes from making the choice that helps you make better decisions in the future. This is all just trial and error. So we make decisions, we make choices, and we don't have a guaranteed positive outcome most of the time. But once the choice is made, then your new intelligence becomes available. And that's what we're looking for. So this cycle of considering options, making choices, and analyzing new information, and then making adjustments as you go, this is a healthy way to move through life. Making sure that you don't get stuck is really about setting a different expectation for yourself. Instead of an expectation that I'm going to do this right and I'm going to do this perfectly and nothing's going to go wrong, that's a crazy expectation. And that's not how life goes. Setting an expectation that says, I have gathered a reasonable amount of information and putting this choice off, this decision off, does not make sense. So I'm going to go ahead and take action. And then I'm going to keep a close eye on what information, data, intelligence, what outcomes come from this decision. And then I'm going to adjust. I'm going to course correct. I'm going to tweak as I go. Staying in the flow of decision making is the key to not getting stuck. Okay, so when you cannot move forward because you are afraid of making a mistake or you're afraid of a negative outcome It's just more data. But when you become fearful and you believe the lies that fear is telling you that say, oh, just sit here, think about it some more, table that decision in the board meeting, don't take any action. You don't want people to think your ideas or your decision is the reason things went wrong. Fear tells us all of these lies. And when you listen to those things, it causes something that you've probably heard of called decision paralysis. In the corporate arena, I dealt with decision paralysis a lot with leaders and also with whole boards of people, whole executive boards of people that just kept tabling and shelving different motions because they were afraid to make a decision. So I've had clients that have literally kept me employed as part of their team simply to run their board meetings because I force decisions. I'm not a fan of tabling or shelving motions. While it is, there is a place for that. If you're familiar with like Robert's rules of parliamentary procedure and things like that, there is a place for that, but it should be rare. And so I really, really push the idea of motions only get put off, decisions only get put off if truly more information is needed to make a good decision. And in that event, a deadline is placed on it and people are assigned to go actually research and gather that information. And then the next time we come back as a board, that decision gets made one way or another. It's a great philosophy for your own personal life as well. You don't want to be stuck in a state of decision paralysis because then really you get that decision muscle atrophying and it becomes very, very difficult. So there is another state. So there is a place that I call decision kinesis, and it's the opposite of decision paralysis. It is that state whereby we see both success and failure as producing valuable intelligence, valuable data for us to move forward. Decision making isn't about making the right call all the time. This is a mindset shift. It's about making the best call with the information that you have at hand right now and staying in motion, staying in decision kinesis, where you are moving things forward on a regular basis. So I talked a minute ago about setting different expectations. So as a leadership coach, I came up with this phrase a while ago because I was trying to help a leader like wrap his brain around this. And I said to him, I want you to adopt this statement to your team. I will not always get it right, but I will always make it right. That is my commitment to you. So I adopted that phrase as my own as well, and I offer it to you. Say it with me. I will not always get it right, but I will always make it right. Making choices in real time with limited information, often in like stressful, high stakes environments, that means that the wrong choice will be made at times, and that's okay. Set the expectation that, hey, with all the decisions that we're making day in and day out, either in our professional life or our personal life, wrong decisions are absolutely just part of it. That is just part of the equation. Set the expectation that when the wrong decision is made, when there's a mistake, when a misstep is taken, as soon as that's recognized, then you're going to immediately take action to make it right, because now you have new and valuable information. Keeping yourself in motion highlights your mistakes and your missteps more quickly. I'm sure you've heard that a car in motion is easier to steer. Well, a parked car, if you have to turn the wheels on a parked car, it's hard. But if that car is moving even just a little, it becomes much easier. When that car's rolling along at a decent clip, now all you have to do to make adjustments is literally fingertips on the steering wheel. The faster you're moving, the easier it is to maneuver, to control, to course correct. Now, if you get going at breakneck speed, then it's easy to spin out of control. So there is a sweet spot here. It's not about how fast you can make decisions. It's about the fact that you're staying in the flow. Okay, so when you set this expectation that there are going to be a certain number of mistakes made, or that there's going to be a certain amount of messiness in the decision-making process. And when your team, when your family, when your community, whoever it is that you're engaging with, whoever it is that your decisions are impacting, let them know there's going to be some messiness. Life is not straight up and to the right. It's just not the trajectory that we're on in life. It's messy, it's complex, and it's beautiful in its complexity, and sometimes even in its messiness. So there's a great proverb that I absolutely love that says, without oxen, a stall is clean, and great is the increase by the power of the ox. So what that proverb is saying is that without any oxen in your life, everything stays clean. But if you want increase, if you want productivity, if you want growth, you're going to have a few oxen around to plow your field. So a certain amount of messiness is okay. It's acceptable, and it's to be expected. Okay, so I used to find that I would be going along gangbusters, and then all of a sudden I'd get stuck. And this was happening to me over and over. And as I began to track it, I realized I would get stuck, not when there were big decisions to make, but little ones. The details just hung me up. And what I realized is I was often saying about myself, I was describing myself as a detail person. But the truth is, I'm not a detail person. I like to fly at 30,000 feet. I like to cast vision and strategy. I'm a big picture person. And as I got a hold of that, the truth of my identity as it related to that, I also had to cop to the fact that I'm not a detail person, and that details trip me up. And you know what? That was great, because for a long time, I would look at, if I said I wasn't a detail person, that's like a weakness. But what I realized is everybody can't own every strength. And my weakness is somebody else's strength. So now I actually like to celebrate my weaknesses instead of feeling badly about them or judging myself or letting fear lie to me and say I'm not good enough because I'm not good at everything. Now I look at my weaknesses and I go, wow, how amazing that is somebody else's strength. Like, there are people who thrive on the details, because I don't want to read the directions. I don't want to go through the steps all the time. I don't want to take the time to run every possible scenario. None of that brings me joy. I want to jump in, I want to get dirty, and I want to get something done. That's my personality. It's how I'm wired. So what I learned is, because my weakness is somebody else's strength, I can celebrate both of those things, not try to pretend something I'm not try to fake it till I make it as a detail person, because I'm telling you, I will literally never be a detail person. And I learned something that really changed everything for me. I learned that it is okay for fearless leaders to outsource their weaknesses and resource their strengths. If you have something you hate doing, pay somebody who loves to do that, and then spend your time resourcing that stuff that comes naturally to you, that stuff that other people will gladly pay you to do because it does not fall in their wheelhouse. Outsource your weakness, resource your strengths. That one given to you for free. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the decision formula. So being decisive is a key proficiency for sure for people who want to live fearlessly. Acknowledging and processing your emotions, all of that's important. You don't want to ignore emotional responses for sure, but at the same time, you don't want your decisions driven out of an emotional place. I think most people know this. Everybody knows somebody at work who is, you know, makes their decisions from an emotional place. And we call them hotheads, or just somebody who flies off the handle. When you allow your emotion lives in that soul realm, mind, will, and emotions, and that's great. I think your emotions are super important. You want to give them a voice. You definitely want to acknowledge them and process them. But if you find that you are generating quick decisions out of that emotional space, chances are you're going to live with some regret in your life. You're either going to be apologizing a lot or you're not, and people are, not going to want to engage with you. So I just like to hit on this emotional part. Hatred, fear, anger, disgust, those things, those emotions, they're just energy in negative motion, right? Hatred, fear, anger, disgust, energy heading in negative direction. Whereas joy, excitement, love, satisfaction, those represent emotions that are just energy heading in a positive direction. So emotion is really just energy in motion. And you want your energy to be a part of what you do, but you don't want your emotions to drive you in the moment. So how do we avoid that? Well, I've created a decision formula or a decision strategy that I employ in my own life, and I call it the triple D method. It is delay, discern, decide. And the way that I think about this is like a traffic circle. So if you've ever traveled abroad, speaking to my American audience, if you've ever traveled in Europe, you've probably encountered traffic circles. We do have some here in America, but not a lot, not like they do in the UK. And the traffic circle to me is so interesting. It does not have stop signs or stoplights that back traffic up and cause you to sit and feel stuck. Like, I can't go anywhere right now. I'm stuck in this traffic. Instead, the traffic circle has a constant flow of movement. And I love that because that's the same thing as decision kinesis. So the goal of the traffic circle is not to race through or to move out of turn. You have to wait your turn. But you also cannot sit at a traffic circle if it is your turn and expect that people aren't going to be having opinions about that they will likely let you know with their horns. So here's the thing with the DDD method. It's built on the same premise as the traffic circle. So you want to keep yourself in decision kinesis by making a judgment call each time you're faced with a choice. When you get up to that traffic circle, you want to delay. You don't just head out into the traffic circle without taking even just a second or two to look both directions and make sure that it truly is the right time to move out, that it is your turn, that it is your time. That's that brief delay to check your surroundings. That checking of your surroundings is the discern part. So we were talking about emotions a minute ago. If I have a decision to make and I take a beat, I take a quick delay, and I discern, am I about to make this decision from like a deeply emotional place, from an angry place, or from a scared place, or from an overly excited place that might cause me to make, a decision I shouldn't be making? Discern. And if you realize that you feel like you're coming from a healthy place, then decide, pull the trigger, do it. It's the same thing with that traffic circle. You stop for a brief moment, you look around at your surroundings, and then you take action and you pull out. You keep that flow going. So one of the things that my husband Tim and I have employed this strategy really effectively in being able to make decisions whenever we're not with each other. We have kind of a standing rule that we don't make decisions without checking with each other. And it's not that we don't trust each other at all. We do. It's that it gives us this decision buffer. It gives us the opportunity to say, to just take a beat, to take a delay. So if somebody says, hey, do you want to go to a dinner party Friday night? I might say, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let me check with Tim and see what our schedule looks like, and then I'll get back to you. It's as simple as that. Then I can buy myself 24 hours to get out of the moment and make sure I'm not making an emotional decision, and check and make sure that, do we feel like doing a dinner party Friday night, or are we more like, hey, let's do dinner and a movie ourselves? It just keeps us from making decisions in the moment. So in my professional life, what I've learned to say, and this is one of those back pocket phrases that I love, when somebody asks me to make a decision, I will say, you know what, let me chew on that for a couple minutes, and then I'll ring you up after I've given it a little thought. Or if it's a bigger decision, I'm gonna sleep on that one. I think I know which way I want to go, but just to be sure, let me give it some intentional thought time. Let me sleep on it. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Buy yourself an hour, buy yourself 24 hours, buy yourself 15 minutes if that's all you have. But just make sure that you're giving yourself time to take that delay so that you can adequately discern, so that when you make the decision, you're making it with the right amount of information, and you aren't making it out of that emotional sort of knee-jerk sort of place. So that is basically what I wanted to cover with you guys today. Again, I want you to hear me. I'm not advocating indecisiveness by this delay, but I'm just also not advocating making snap decisions. Both things can be detrimental. But in my experience, what I find is people are getting stuck much more on the side of not making a decision. So I hope that some of these ideas, these strategies, the delay, discern, decide, decision-making process method, I hope it gives you some tools to work with, or at least some things to think about next time you are feeling stuck and you need to get into decision kinesis, or the next time you feel like, oh, I've said yes to too many things and I need to pull back on the reins. All right, thanks so much again for joining me, and I look forward to being together again next time on The Fearless Revolution.
The Fearless Revolution has begun, and you are an important part of getting the message of fearlessness out to the world. Follow Sandy on Facebook and Instagram at The Fearless Revolution for more empowering content that will help leaders embrace the fullness of their identities, lean into their destinies, and lead fearlessly. Check out the show notes for all the links. If this podcast has impacted you, we ask that you subscribe or follow, and be sure to share with another fearless leader.